All right. Hi, everyone. My name is KP. I am part of the SIFPAC support team. Welcome to day one of the 2025 Supplier Development Summit, hosted by the Good Food Purchasing Initiative team, the GFPI team for short. Together with our partners, we are working to make Chicagoland's food system more equitable, transparent, and centered on food that is local, sustainable, fair, humane, and nutritious. This means that we are shifting how institutions buy food through the Good Food Purchasing Program, while also uplifting suppliers with resources and gatherings like this summit. So, thank you for joining us for Imagining the Fresh Supply Chain of the Future, featuring Martha King, who is the VP of Global Programs at Totem. And I will pass it on to Martha to get us started.
Sure. So thank you, KP. Thanks, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I am Martha King. I work with my partner, Drew Zabraki at Totem. We serve as the innovation engine behind the International Fresh Produce Association Supply Chain of the Future initiative. KP, do you want to pull up the slide? We'll get started here. Sure. So before we want to dive in, just want to acknowledge the incredible work that organizations like Chicago Food Policy Action Council are doing to address food access, supply chain equity in this region. I really, today, I hope it's not just me telling you what to do or me just talking at you. So please put questions in the chat. You can stop me along the way. I will hold some time for questions. I've got a few polls and things along the way for you to interact with. So have your phones ready to scan some QR codes. But yeah, again, this is really about learning from you. I want to hear your perspectives, understand your challenges, and really talk and explore with you kind of how this global initiative that I'm a part of might actually support the work that you're doing locally. We really look at this fresh supply chain of the future as a model for other agricultural supply chains. So the next slide, please. So the Supply Chain of the Future initiative is a core initiative of the International Fresh Produce Association. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the Fresh Produce Association and fresh produce supply chains, but really what we're doing, we've been talking with dairy. This is built on some work that we did in regenerative ranching as well. So a lot of this is very much applicable to other supply chains, and we're working on that, and it's part of the future vision. But for now, I'm going to talk a lot about this Supply Chain of the Future initiative with IFPA. And it started with a simple insight that Steve Alerts, he's the chair of the IFPA Supply Chain Council, shared with us. So, data is important, but people working together is more important, right? And so this really became our North Star. We're not trying to build a technology platform. We're really looking at this like it's a movement. One that will recognize that small and medium-sized operations are the backbone of local and regional food systems. So here's kind of what's different. This initiative is really about leveraging resources from large corporations to build frameworks that we will give away for free to smaller businesses and independents, about equalizing voice and access. And the journey really started years ago, not overnight. If you think about the pandemic, couldn't find toilet paper, but there was fresh produce on the shelves, right? So the fresh produce industry showed incredible resilience, but it also exposed some cracks in the system. And so, working with our partners at IFPA, we kind of asked ourselves, what if we could start over and build the supply chain we actually want? And so that's kind of where this supply chain of the future is born. So that supply chain, we don't want one that's designed for outdated technology or one that only works for companies with massive IT budgets. We really look at this as how do we build this supply chain that works for growers of all sizes, all regions, all over the world. So first question is, speaking of all over the world, is to learn who all's in the room. So if you go to the next slide, please. I've got a poll for you, so I'm going to try to keep these rolling. First question is a fun one. It's my little icebreaker. And you can keep putting things in the chat. You can put this answer in the chat so we can associate the answer with you. But the very first question I have for you all, which you should see, is what is your favorite fruit or vegetable? So please scan that code or go to slido.com and enter in the hashtag 2597887, and hopefully we'll see some results. And if you're having issues with the Slido, please put a note in the chat and we'll try to troubleshoot this, but there we go. Sweet potato. I see the first one. You should be able to see the answers right away as we go here. So get your favorite fruit or vegetable in here. That's great. And I know some of you are working with school systems and things. I love the work that's happening at schools to increase access to fruits and vegetables. My own kid's school district is they have to have 2 fresh fruits or vegetables every day in their school, which is pretty amazing. So gets them to try some new things. So. Cool. Oh wow, we've really some very specific specialty crops here. I was like, you were going to see some apples. We got poblanos, mangoes, Napa cabbage. This is great. Pomegranates. I love it. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next question. You can keep putting things in. I think it'll keep up and keep going, but please, and tell us who you are. And again, you can put this in the chat as well as on here so that we can associate who you are with your answer. But who are you? Are you growers, producers? Are you in distribution, logistics, support organizations? It's great. Awesome. I love it. I love it. It's who we want to see. Cool. So I'll keep that one open for a minute. And then for our growers, are you selling to grocery stores at the moment? I know someone was talking about wholesale earlier as well. So that's something we've been talking about on this initiative too, but curious on grocery. Anybody's got here? No, but we'd like to. Oh, good. Okay, good. Keep it coming. Not applicable. Yes. Awesome. All right. Only a few more here. What is your biggest operational challenge right now? And that can be for those support organizations as well as you growers on here. Might take a minute. I see people, land access, that's a good one, yeah. Funding, yes. Very much a challenge. Opportunities, yep. Microgreens, markets, market access, land access, access everywhere. Yep. And folks, a few more minutes to answer. It's great. Compliance, readiness. Yep. We see all of these things as well, for sure. Somebody still typing? I don't want to close it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. This one's a fast poll, and this is the last one for the moment. Which barriers have you experienced? I wish I should have put land access on here, but you can maybe hit the capital for growth one maybe on that one. But technology, is it transportation, compliance? We heard that one. Getting paid fairly, requirements, all those kinds of things. What are your barriers? And if this doesn't apply to you, you don't have to answer either. No. And hopefully you're seeing the answers as you're going. You're seeing the results to folks, or what other people are entering. Just trying to spare KP from having to switch back and forth on windows here. All right, give it a few more minutes, seconds, not minutes. Thank you all. Indulging in my questions here. Okay. All right. Thank you. So yeah, I think access is key. Definitely need to work on that. And I really appreciate you all sharing on some of this in terms of what you're seeing. It's interesting to me that technology has not come up. Well, I'll be talking a lot about technology, but I think you'll see it's the backbone of a lot of the movement of some of these things, like the compliance requirements, buyer requirements, some of those pieces. So, all right, thank you for doing that. Okay, KP, can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, that's great. Thank you. So over the past 18 months, which is kind of since we've gotten this initiative kicked off, we've had hundreds of people from around the world working together, not just talking, but actually working on solving some of these problems. And now we've got some new problems thanks to your poll that I want to try to look into with our group. But we did, you see some photos of this, we did a live Collabathon in Las Vegas in December with folks from North America, from across the fresh supply chain, kind of mapped out where are their data handoffs, where are their challenges across the supply chain, where are their regulatory issues. And we had a clear, response from that Collabathon of what we should focus on. But in everything that we do, we look at it from this global lens because the supply chains are global. So we thought, okay, well, let's repeat this around the world. So we ran interactive sessions around Asia, Europe, Australia, Africa, and we focused on practical business benefits. How do we make more money for growers? How do we reduce waste? How do we serve customers better? Ask similar questions about what are the regulatory challenges that you're facing. And the insights we gathered, again, they weren't just from hearing from regional distributors, medium-sized growers, smaller growers, again, growers in Africa, Middle East, Asia, Europe, food safety experts, sustainability leaders, so people from across the entire supply chain. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There you go. Thank you. So these are our foundational partners and steering committee members on the initiative. You'll see major retailers like Walmart, Sam's Club. We're working also with Sobeys in Canada, alongside technology providers, standards organizations, research institutions. And again, what's important is that this isn't really a coalition where these large companies are making decisions and small operators follow. It's an industry-owned initiative where the frameworks are developed collaboratively and we release everything as open source. So meaning anybody can use these tools for free. So next slide. I said it once, let's keep saying it. Our work is truly global. We have participants from 5 continents actively working on supply chain challenges because the supply chain issues don't stop at borders. But global doesn't mean for us disconnected from local. So in fact, we're learning that local and regional food systems face many of the same challenges as international supply chains. They're just at different scales. So the next slide. So this is really what's at stake. Mountains of wasted food at terminal markets. And this is actually a photo that Steve Alleritz, that I mentioned, the chair of the IFPA Supply Chain Council. This is a photo that he took at a terminal in Belgium. So mountains of wasted food, and it represents not just economic loss, right, but missed opportunities to nourish communities and support growers who did everything right. So this is critically important to us and why, it keeps us, is at the heart of what we're doing. Let's minimize food waste. Let's make sure there's value returned to growers, and let's increase access to healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables all around the world. So next slide, please. So our current systems are failing us. I think you also are telling us in the poll as well, some additional ways that they're failing us. We're not just talking about the technology, but within that technology space, non-open source solutions and proprietary platforms, you may experience this in your own operations. They're creating data silos that limit access to critical information. It hinders collaboration across borders and between different sized operations. It extracts value while limiting innovation, and it threatens to undermine climate resilient initiatives, regenerative agriculture, food security efforts. So we think that the time for incremental change is over. We really need a movement, and that starts with open collaboration. So next slide, please. So again, the produce industry really stands at a crossroads. We face mounting pressure to increase transparency, meet evolving consumer demands, adapt to rapid change, reduce billions in waste. But we really have a lot of outdated systems, fragmented data, and I think, let's be honest, a fundamental lack of trust, which is a key component of what we're trying to solve within the initiative. So small and medium operators often bear the most risk, but capture the least value, and that has to change. So ready for a next, another poll to everyone to understand your specific challenges. So back to Slido for a few more questions. First question. Again, if it doesn't apply to you, you can skip the question, hang tight. But when you try to work with larger buyers, how challenging is it to meet their requirements? See what you have to say here. Or if this just one isn't applicable, I'll move on to the next one, but I'll give it a few seconds. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Pretty difficult, pretty difficult. And I would love to dig in more on this one. So please put some, put some things in the chat of what makes it so challenging for you. I'd love to hear some responses on that. Thank you. I'm going to start calling on people eventually if I keep hearing my own voice. So the next question, what is the #1 reason small producers struggle to get into retail markets in your experience and opinion? The volume requirements. Yep. Presumably, yes. Okay, that's food safety compliance. Yeah. Interesting. It's not price competition, at least so far, and not the technology. Connection, compliance, food safety compliance, and volume. Great, thank you. Again, keep them. Yeah, they don't. I like this, Glenda. Thank you. They don't say what they're looking for or what is wrong with your submitted information, so you can't tell. Yes. I'm sorry that happens, but we need some more transparency. And I think that's, again, something within this initiative. We're trying to lower these barriers of communication from the grower back all the way through retail. Okay. If you could change one thing about how the supply chain works, so what would it be? What would it be? I have a feeling from some of these from the earlier sessions today, but interested. And it doesn't have to be the fresh produce supply chain here. I know we've got folks from other sectors in the audience. Profit motive. New more questions in this one. Flexibility. People a chance to answer. It all came in at once. Okay, ethics, flexibility, lowballing. Yes, we'll talk about value, extraction later, bids. Yes, could be competitive against California. That's really interesting. I'd love to hear more on that one in the chat. Keep them coming, folks. Again, feel free to elaborate on any of these or interact with each other in the chat. Thank you. All right, next question. I don't know if I see anybody else typing. Okay, what information do buyers request that feels challenging to provide? So some of this you talked about, you don't know what's wrong, but what about what you do know that they're looking for? What's challenging on any of this? Or it's like none of these are challenging. They're not asking me for these things. I would suspect I'm not gonna, some of these I can guess based on some earlier answers from folks, but yeah, production forecasts, yep. That is very challenging to provide. Food safety certifications, the traceability. Yep. Great. We have a few more seconds on this one. It's the forecasting. And again, put things in the chat, say why. I'm going to call on people later. Yes. Well, it's weather. I'm looking at Jack's response here. I mean, if you could predict the weather, would you be in farming still? Yes, you'd be doing great. If you could control the weather, even better. No, but it's very, very difficult to forecast when so many things are out of your control, right? You're not making widgets, you're growing food. So great. Thank you all so much for that one. So we'll wait, I'll keep that open for a minute and then go on to the next slide. So thanks. We'll have another poll in a little bit, but that's where we're at for now. So thank you all on that. So here's really our vision. It's a supply chain where data flows freely, but securely. So where you control your information and transparency reduces waste, rewards quality. And I talked about trust, right? This is really where trust is built through collaboration and not extraction. So our values are pretty simple. Collaboration over competition. We share our learnings. We're not just about competing. I mean, a lot of the work we're doing is pre-commercial, non-competitive. Data sovereignty, control your data, period. That's fundamental to this initiative and our beliefs and philosophy of what we're doing and supporting it. Open standards, so no vendor lock-in, no subscriptions. Everything we do is open source and out there for industry to use. value distribution. So I've talked about this a little bit, but when you add value, you should capture a value. You know, growers, you're doing some really amazing things on your operations. So you're adding value to your product, you're adding value within the chain. You should be able to be rewarded for that value. And then action orientation. We're building things, we're testing things. We don't just talk. This is really about actually building that fresh supply chain of the future. So next slide, please. Enough talk. It's time for action. For sure, you know, we're tired of talking about these problems. We're building real solutions now. And our industry is demonstrating tangible value through our industry-owned toolkits, globally recognized standards, collaborative demonstrations, and real pilots with real ROI. So action that is creating results, and we'd love to have you all be a part of it. So talk a little bit on the next slide about some of these things more specifically. Arose from our listening sessions that we did around the world, and we grouped our work into 4 core initiatives. You can think of them in 2 categories. So on the left side are the commercial incentives, and on the right side are the technology enablers. So on the commercial side, we have shelf life prediction. So that's getting the right product to the right place at the right time. This means less waste, better pricing for everyone in the chain. Dynamic incentives. So again, we've talked about value. If you're adding value, good cold chain management, optimal handling, quality preservation, sustainable practices, you should share in that value and not just absorb costs. So fair exchange. And then on those technology enablers, harmonized standards. So we want to make sure everybody speaks the same language, that we use similar data formats, same standard practices around the world. You know, fill out one form, not 20. I always think about when we worked with our working groups that I'll talk about, we always find the person who scrubs the spreadsheets, right? I have to change it this way for this buyer, or I have to change it this way for this regulatory, you know, regulation that I have to comply with. Like, no, we want you to be able to, you know, download that data, quickly synchronize it in the format that you need, and get back to growing and doing the things that you love to do. On smart data escrow, so this is really a game changer, we think, for small operators in particular. You can share data with buyers you trust without sharing it with everyone. So you control your data. You decide when and with whom to share when it makes business sense. Okay, so your phone out again. I've got another poll for you all. Let me see here. So we're going to have you, and I can talk about these initiatives a little bit more. If you have a question, ask me. But based on kind of what I said here in terms of shelf life prediction, and that would be at the retail level, paid for quality, smart data escrow, control of data sharing, and then harmonized standards, getting common formats requirements. Which of these do you think, or you want to rank these in order by the value that you think they would add to your operation? I think I'm missing it by the value they would add to your operation. Forgive my poor grammar here on the poll. Incentives, yes. I would expect nothing less from the growers here. That's what we want. Standards, it's good. Okay. And I think, you know, there was the comment, you know, comments about production forecasting. That's part of what goes into the shelf life prediction. And we're working with a couple of universities, University of Florida in particular, on building out those algorithms, because obviously, as you can imagine, it varies from, you know, product to product. But what are those variables that would go into this, and how do you collect that information in a seamless way on farm that it carries all the way through the chain? And there are, you know, lots of different data points that are picking up as the product moves through the chain, you know, as it moves onto a truck or into a warehouse and then ultimately into a grocery store. What are all those variables that then go into affecting the life of the product? So how can we have that information move in a way that is safe and secure, but also helps get the freshest product to the consumer? Okay, so if you could share information with retailers securely, knowing only they could see it, what would be valuable to share? So the forecast, if you could assume that it's easy to share this, right? If you could, this is an imagination question, right? So if you could share the information, what would it be valuable from your perspective to share. So think about this. Thank you for the comments in the chat. Keep them going. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Yep, inventory. Yep. Yep. And production, forecasting, right? You can't sell it to them if they don't know what you have. I love no. Everybody's like, I don't. No one's answering nothing. I don't want to share my data. Very trusting group here. It's great. Thank you. Inventory, and production capacity forecasts. Yep. There we have it. And sustainability practices. Okay, good. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all. All right. Would you be interested in shared resources if they were affordable and locally? Thinking a little bit more about the infrastructure question. So storage, transportation, data systems. Yes. Cool. So this is something that we are really working on within the initiative as well, particularly for smaller operations, right? Great. Equipment sharing too is another one that I've been thinking about with my partners. Cool. All right. Let one go for a minute more. Second more. Great. All right, now for my next question. How much time do you spend on paperwork and compliance versus actually growing or selling food? So, oh, that's a good one. That's a good point too, as an indoor grower. Yeah. That inventory management is so critical. All right. This could be for the supporting organizations too. How much time are you spending on paperwork and compliance versus your mission? Thinking about this in terms of actually growing or selling food. Lots of paperwork. Not too bad. That's good. That's good. Oh no, numbers are climbing here. Not too bad. Okay, give it a few more seconds. Again, hopefully you can see others' results as you're doing this on your phones. Appreciate you playing along. Oh, score is rising. Not too much though. Thank you. Okay, so last question in this round. What would make it easier for small producers to work together to meet larger orders? So yeah, we talked a little bit about shared logistics or transportation. Would standards be a part of it? Planning tools. I think this one you can check all that you would like. You can check as many as you want, I think. I don't know if they'll let me fix the settings. Yep, this one, you should be able to check more than one. So already working well collaboratively. That's great. That is great. Would love to hear more about that. So that's you. Please put some of those examples in the chat. Quality standards. Yep. Great. Trust building. Yep. Logistics and transportation. That is the big one. Yes, it is. How do you move that product? How do you get it off of your operation and into my belly? No, into the grocery store, to somebody else's belly. Thank you. All right, let's keep it going. I'll leave that one open. Still got it, but okay, let's go on to the next slide. So again, thank you guys for your participation. Appreciate it. Okay, so again, these are the, if you go forward. Yeah, again, these are those four, go back one. I don't, maybe it's auto advancing. Do you mind going back? For just a sec. Okay, so these are our 4 core initiatives. I will give you a plug at the end. If you want to sign up to be a part of these groups, it is free. It's just cost of your time. For these areas you're particularly interested in working on with us, and you're in the fresh produce industry, again, this is with fresh produce for now, we would love to have you and have your expertise and your perspectives in these working groups. So, okay, on to the next slide. So I'm going to talk to you about our innovation flywheel and how we do what we do. So It's going to look loading here. This is how we work. It's a continuous cycle, not a one-time project. So we start with listening and discovery. So we listen globally through our collaborathons and engagement. And then we have built up these working groups, and those working groups transform what we heard into actionable framework. So that's our strategic focus prioritization, as I mentioned. We also have steering committees that ensure everything is fitting together. And then we test this in real world pilots. And 5, we showcase what works, we share our learnings, and then we reflect and improve, and the cycle starts again. So this really creates our sustainable innovation model. We return to step 1 over and over again with new stakeholder input. It continuously evolves. So we appreciate your additional stakeholder input that is super valuable. And your voice matters. So the organizations that you're with can really help shape this cycle at every stage. So the next slide, I'll talk to you about our roadmap. So as I mentioned, we completed these global collaborathons, hundreds of stakeholders identified 4 core initiatives. Now we're in this technical work groups phase. So we're actually building the frameworks and tools. And in the fall and into next year, we'll run some more collaborative pilots and demonstrations. We got to showcase a lot of what we were doing at the Global Produce and Floral Show in Anaheim last month. So beyond 2026, this really becomes sustained infrastructure that the industry owns and maintains together. So next slide, please. We also ran a global survey, and we got about 120 responses across 5 continents. Every barrier you might be thinking of, we heard it. And here's what we did. We took every one of those barriers, and that became a challenge to our working groups to give a focused response. So, lack of industry standards. We have 5 ASTM international standards currently in development. ROI uncertainty. We've built business tools and ROI calculators. Risk without proof. We have documented pilots and a technical accelerator program. Some really, really cool pilots going on. I'd love to talk more about if I have the time. Implementation complexity. We provide some templates and guides that are peer reviewed by experts. Our integration. Oh, if you keep clicking, I think it's going to show the response. Sorry about the challenge of me not controlling the slides. There we go. Technology integration, zero disruption, architecture, kind of showing how it all works with existing systems, and then our data sharing concerns. So smart data escrow, we talked about that as one of the working group priorities. That really lets you share information with anyone without sharing it with everyone. So again, wasn't just listening, it was building the answers that industry is telling us that you need. So then next slide, it's coordinated work. It's well orchestrated. It's managed through a central program office that I and my business partner co-facilitate. We have these 4 specialized teams working on different challenges, but they all connect together. And this is important. The development costs are shared across all participants. The industry owns everything that we build together. So next slide, please. So I mentioned those priority areas. Those have evolved into 4 specialized committees. So they work separately, but connect together. And what's really powerful about this model is that small and medium-sized operators, you don't need to join every committee. You can engage through organizations that represent your interests. You can participate in working groups, you can shape the frameworks, and you can bring tools back to your teams and stakeholders. So the shelf life and dynamic incentives, harmonized standards, innovation and technical programs, and full circle integration. So I'll pause there just for a second. I'm gonna look in the chat, and then I will go on and talk to you about what each one of these groups does in a little bit more detail. Great, and thank you, Ever. I will be happy to talk to you about some of the pilots that we are doing. Okay, on to the next slide here. So I'll talk about the shelf life prediction and dynamic incentives. So this is really about reducing waste, optimizing value. So over 90 companies are already participating in these work groups. So they're building those calculators, frameworks, pilot programs. We have a really interesting pilot going on right now with GS1 standards provider, a produce company, North Bay Produce, and Quick Lock. So Quick Lock is, the little clasp that you have on your bread bag or potatoes or apples, that clasp, that is their patent. But we have a way to put a dynamic barcode onto those clips where it shares a lot of information back down to the lot level for growers. And so what this can do, it actually has a lot of really interesting implications. One, for a food safety perspective, you can reduce the amount that you have to throw away in a food safety issue or in an audit. But also some really cool things with grocery stores that we're working with. So if you scan the 2D barcode, you can get information about back to the storytelling with the grower. So it'll tell you exactly what farm it came from, tell you about the family that's producing the products. And then there's some other things within the store, not just from that storytelling, marketing, branding side, but you can show the verification of claims on sustainability claims, all sorts of other fun information about the product. One that I think is really cool is you can do some wayfinding in the grocery store. So if you scan that apple, it might tell you, oh, you want to make an apple pie with this? Here, go to this aisle to get your, to get your sugar and to pie crust. So you can build recipes and other things off of that particular product just from that barcode. And that's, all part of these tools and the technology that we're building together. Let me see a question in the chat. The grower, would the grower be purchasing the tags or would the retailer be doing it? It's a good question. It's usually, it depends on, I think it depends. I'd have to ask in some of the things. I know in some cases, it is definitely the retailer that's doing that because they're setting the standard for the packaging that they want. In other cases, I think the growers are purchasing those things because there is the technology, the bagging technology that growers purchase on occasion if they're doing their own packing. So it really depends on where the packing is happening and who's sharing the cost of that packing. But in some cases, yes, it's the retailers. And again, that's part of the question on value. So if there's an additional value that comes from that information that's on that bag, like the storytelling about the grower or the opportunity to do more marketing off of just that bag tag, then yeah, the retailers are going to pay for that. But hopefully it returns more value back, down to the grower because, you've got good storytelling, you've got good branding and quality information that's going along with the information on that tag. Doing some other things with berries and the clamshells and barcodes on those, similar kind of information on the label and packaging stuff. So, broadly speaking, I do work on sustainability and packaging work with my partners in conjunction. So when I talk about the integration committee in a moment, that's really what that's all about, kind of integrating all these different areas that overlap that aren't just supply chain, because supply chain kind of touches lots of different subtopics. Okay, so on the shelf life and prediction and dynamic incentives, again, so lots you can do here, reducing loss from overstocking and understocking, getting paid more when you deliver higher quality, understanding shelf life better so you can time market. So this group is really focused on that waste reduction and building some really cool tools. Okay, the next slide. So the harmonized standards and smart data escrow working group. This one is quite a bit focused on the standards. And I think, like I was saying earlier, I think this is really where small producers can benefit from us harmonizing some of these standards. So 5 international standards under development, that'll create a common language for data exchange. And when we talk about smart data escrow, we're talking about sharing data securely with buyers you trust, keeping your competitive information protected, controlling who sees what and when, working with your existing systems. We're really all about enhancing data interoperability. So, no disruption, having things talk to each other. So sharing what helps, protecting what matters. As I said, that sharing data with anyone without sharing with everyone. So for organizations working with multiple small producers, this could enable aggregation without compromising individual farmer data and privacy. So that's really critical for us. Okay, the next one. So integration and connectivity working group, launching and getting some signups going. And it's about building cross-industry partnerships and regulatory frameworks that scale globally. So for sponsoring organizations, it's an opportunity to shape how the whole industry transforms. For participants, it's all about building relationships with strategic partners globally, having some influence from the beginning. And this is where we think that regional food systems organizations and growers can connect with global initiatives to ensure the frameworks work within local contexts. So it's connecting, again, not just across industry. So we're looking beyond the fresh produce industry to kind of what we can learn from other supply chains or what other supply chains can learn from us. But also how do we integrate across some of these other things that, impact the supply chain. So sustainability, packaging considerations as well. Okay, so the next one, this is the geeky one I love, the Innovation and Technical Programs Working Group. So this is another new one for 2026. We're taking signups now. This is all about focused on like technical help without IT headaches. So we'll provide some technical support for implementation, shared resources to reduce cost, professional project management, AI tools, so for organizations without big tech teams, and you'd be surprised how many organizations don't have big tech teams, right? This is a way to access high-level technical expertise through shared resources. So the next slide. So for us, this is kind of the next year and next initiative is really all about value. So we are focused on delivering real measurable impact. I think there might be, if you keep clicking, it might have more things. Let's see, there we go. Okay, this includes retail engagement to create market opportunities, full circle integration across fresh departments, global partner ecosystem building, next generation leadership programs. So we've been talking about the supply chain of the future. We can't build that without future leaders. So we've got some things going with a couple of universities for student projects. So we're building tomorrow's solutions while getting today's work done and trying to do it in a way that stays true to our values, that are open, collaborative, and industry owned. Glenda, no, not everything is in the building stage. There are real tools, and like our ROI calculators are out there. Definitely a lot on service level agreements and templates, best practice guides. Pilots underway, like the one I mentioned. Actually, there's a couple underway, and 5 standards under development that are advancing towards votes within their respective standards organizations. So yeah, it's definitely underway. We're just sort of slowing things down a little bit now to kind of focus on the next. How do we scale this and continue to scale it? But several hundred people involved around the world. Currently and actively engaged in our working groups. So they're doing the work now. On the next slide, see here. So our 2026 strategy, so building on what we've been doing over the past 18 months, focusing on return on investment. So proving this value through further retail engagement and pilots, really getting those things out there in the marketplace. The full circle integration, connecting across food safety, sustainability, packaging, compliance. If you click again, there might be more text. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so full circle integration, I just said. So food safety, sustainability, compliance, and those. Yep. Global partner ecosystem. So building these open source communities with local support. And then lastly, the next generation one, like I mentioned, training future leaders through some academic partnerships. So it's really about balancing the immediate ROI of what we're doing with sustainable growth. So the next slide. So there's lots of different ways that you can engage with us if you're interested. And again, this is open to any organization, any phase of the supply chain. For now, I'd say it's just fresh produce, but if you work on fresh produce and other things, or you have an interest in the technical aspects of fresh supply chains, we'd love to talk to you and keep working with us. So on our technical working groups and steering committees, these advise, there's monthly collaborative sessions. Those working groups meet roughly every 2 weeks. They're shaping standards, frameworks, guiding the development of our pillars. The steering committees are sponsored positions that really influence the direction of kind of what are some of the focus areas that our working groups go out and build. There's pilot opportunities, collaborative demonstrations, use cases, so validating solutions in real world environments, creating examples that showcase the benefits of collaboration and interoperability. So pre-commercial, pre-competitive, that people are working on things collaboratively and open. And it says my internet connection is unstable, so please still hear me. So yes, we are happy to work across the supply chain on these pilots. So as I mentioned, we got like on that one that I mentioned with Quick Lock, you know, we have a retailer, we have a produce grower, we have you know, the packaging labeler, and then we have a standards organization, GS1, behind it all. So that's what we like to see. And then there's industry leadership as foundational partners. These are folks that are leading the transformation, strategic thought leaders, and getting recognition across our initiatives while steering the future of our global movement. So really, we want to work with all kinds of organizations and networks, as well as individual farmers, mid-sized distributors, innovative growers working together, food hubs, all of it, because the supply chain kind of touches everybody. Okay, so time for our last poll here, and then I'll check the chat and we can get some Q&A going. So next slide. Let me launch this one. Okay. If you are interested in any of these things, let me know. If you're interested in participating in working groups or learning more, or you want to stay informed, or no, that's okay. It won't hurt my feelings. It is tomatoes, virtual tomatoes, or you need to discuss with leadership. That's great. We'd love to have participation in those working groups. It's free. Again, it's a commitment of time. Yeah, they're active. I mean, there's at least over 100 signed up on each working group and climbing since we just came back from the global show. And we will be having a retrospective that I'll talk about in a moment, which is a great opportunity for you to kind of test this out and see if this is something you want to be involved in a little bit more. And that's coming up on the 20th of November, but I'll share that in a moment. Okay, what do you think it would make it easier for organizations like yours to participate? So this is really important because our working groups are active working groups. Unlike today where I'm just talking at everybody, the working groups are working. So we use collaborative tools, virtual whiteboard spaces. Everybody's, you know, talking, putting things up on the whiteboard, really solving these challenges. So like, for example, there was at one point, one of the working group meetings, they were working on the shelf life prediction, and they spent a considerable amount of time identifying what are all of the data elements and variables that go into those predictions by commodity. And then they would go off and they'd say, well, we'll report back next week. Like, I'm going to get the information back to you all for broccoli or for this specific commodity. So again, they're very, very active contributors within the space. So we love that. So grant funding, support participation, excellent. And we're always working on the challenges of time zones, since again, it's a global initiative, but it's great to get involved. You know, if for nothing else other than the networking, you really get to know people from across the whole chain around the globe. So great. All right, leave that one open for just a second more. Participation. Okay, flexible times, yes. Thank you. Okay. And you can put this in the chat too, but here you could put also here, what's one question you still have about how this could benefit the communities that you serve? So speaking specifically about your stakeholders, you know, how might some of these things that I've been talking about, what are our priority areas within this supply chain of the future? How do you think this could benefit the communities you serve? Or what is the question you have about that? How many small scale growers participate in committees or retailers who purchase from the small scale growers? Well, it's a good question. So in terms of the retailers who are participating, I don't know their exact numbers of how many are purchasing from small scale growers. I would imagine a lot. So I mentioned Walmart, Sobeys in Canada, Sam's Club. So they are definitely purchasing from small scale growers, but doing so on a massive, massive scale. So there's a couple other retailers that have been involved in different ways. We just ran a retailers summit, and I'm kind of collecting the information from that as well. The small scale growers, there's a good chunk of them. I mean, it's a produce industry, so the scale isn't massive farms. So I have to get back to you on kind of the percentage across the working groups that are growers versus, you know, others, but it really is kind of an even balance across the supply chain apart from the retailers. So the group where we have the fewest amount of participants currently is retailers, and that's a priority for us for the next year, which is why we held this Retail Issues Forum. We're going to be speaking at some events in Europe coming up in February with retailers. So that's a priority of growing their participation. But otherwise, I mean, if you think about from the grower to logistics, warehouse management, all of the parts of the chain before the retailer, it's pretty even split. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, answer to some of that. All right, I know we're getting close to on time. Okay, how should we follow up with you? I'm gonna skip past this one pretty quickly because I'm gonna show you how you can follow up. I'll leave that there, but you reach out if interested, which is great. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next slide and come into the end here. So I want to close with this, the small and medium sized operations. You're not an afterthought in this work. You're very much central to it. We know you've got unique challenges, but there's a lot of unique strengths, connection to community, innovation born from necessity, agility. And what we're building with Supply Chain of the Future is meant to flow resources to you and not to extract value from you. So for organizations in the room, growers, this is an opportunity for you to be a part of shaping global frameworks to work for your communities, access free and open, connect with a worldwide network facing similar challenges, amplify your impact and your brand. We're not here to just recruit, individual growers and participants. We really want to connect with organizations that can represent producer voices, bring actual tools and resources back to your companies. So if you want to learn a lot more about where we've come from, where we're headed, I mentioned we are hosting a community retrospective on November 20th. That's at 12 p.m. Central. I will put in the chat here a registration link for that, but it's also available on our website. So our website is supply chain. You can scan that QR code. If you go to the next slide, I think it's up there. It's in my tiny video too, but the website, it's very tiny here also, supplychainofthefuture.org or scotf.org. Either one works. That QR code works. So supplychainofthefuture.org. You can register for the retrospective on there or the link that I just put in the chat. So if you see potential here, let's talk. If you're skeptical, we want to hear that too. This only works if it's built with communities, not for them. So thank you for your time and your insights. I want to take some more questions, get back to the chat. My contact information is up there on the screen. You can also find us on the website. And then the next slide has that survey that KP mentioned. So make sure you do that. Thank you for your feedback and participation. So yes, we got a little bit of time here at the end. So happy to have folks come off the off of mute and ask questions. I'm going to keep looking through the chat and see if there's anything I've missed, but it would be great to connect with all of you. I see some great responses. So hopefully KP will, if you can get me a copy of the chat at some point too, just those folks that have signed up, that would be great. I can put my own, I'll put my email in the chat as well if you can't see it on the screen. martha.king@totemltd.com. Oh, we can't access the survey. Maybe well, I know when Zoom ends, the session feedback survey, it opens automatically, but maybe it's not live until after the event. I'm not sure, KP. You can weigh in on that. Or is this a different link for the survey?
It looks to me like the survey should be live right now.
Okay, I'm going to click on it too.
Just pasted a new link.
Okay.
Can everyone see if this link works?
So maybe my QR code doesn't work, in which case just delete that slide, go back to her. So yeah, good. Like take it down if it's the wrong one. That's what y'all sent me. So I don't know if that's wrong. I'm gonna see if that works now. That was
that second link works. The second link works. There's an issue with the first link.
Okay.
Hey, thanks guys. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. All good. Okay, so maybe there's your survey. So take the survey. Yeah, any questions further or anybody want to talk about it? Or challenges you're seeing in your supply chains, dig into some of those things that we saw in the poll. Yeah.
Hi, this is Glenda.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Baby Greens Family Farm. We grow microgreens and indoors, and have been heavily impacted by all the crazy stuff going on. but I appreciate this opportunity. I just hoping I want to push the envelope on the conversations because most of the growers who I know are participating and sticking their hands out to find ways to be a part of the conversation. Also want to scale up. That's already something that we desire to do. So it's just opportunity, just giving us time and opportunity to
Yeah.
do so. And understanding the timeline to actually for this to go live can help us be able to hang in there
Sure.
while trying to figure out and solidify next moves. But thanks again.
Sure. Yeah, and to clarify, there's no like one big go live. There's like, think of it as like as many go lives as the industry and participants want there to be, right? So, you know, if there's something where you're thinking like, boy, if we need this piece or this technology or this challenge or barrier is in the way of us scaling, like maybe we can talk with our, you know, you can talk with the partners and the other folks collaborating on these working groups and say, well, let's go build a pilot around that and try to solve that, right? I mean, the pilots are not meant, they're pilots, they're so that we can, before we put it out there into practice. So, you know, we want to see what works, test things out. So like, and again, it has to be real challenges. We don't want to, we're not, I think one of the things that where it's, you know, Drew, my partner, and I, and the folks that we work with at IFPA, we're really adamant about is not building technology for its own sake. And not just the technology, but solutions or whatever you want to call it. It has to be stuff that industry is actually wanting, and that solves real challenges. And then we'll go. It's the reverse model of rather than trying to push something down. It's from the ground up. I mean, that's really critical to us. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you more on what those challenges are and then what are the barriers to scaling and how we might be able to help with that. Because I think some of these things in terms of data standards. In particular, it seems like it's boring stuff. Don't tell the standards organizations I said that, but it seems like it's boring stuff, but it's actually, they're pieces that are help the small and the big guys, and gals from in massive, massive ways when you can get some of those kind of core infrastructure kinds of things right and harmonized. Yeah. Are there questions? We're getting close to the end, but thank you all. I appreciate it. Appreciate the engagement.